Welcome in everyone to the next edition of the 70 Chipcast. I am Robertson Vire. Co-host is Ben Parker. Welcome to Pro Football Enterprise YouTube channel, or if you're listening to audio only on Spotify or Apple, welcome in. So very nice to have you guys here tonight. Hopefully, next week we'll be on better, more happier uh, times. Because let me tell you, even though it was Thursday night, which is four days ago, this still feels really relatively fresh of this beatdown that we had from the Green Bay Packers, which we're going to get into here momentarily and preview Week Three's matchup against I almost said Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders. Before we do that, Ben, how are we doing tonight? Did you enjoy your weekend of football?
Yeah, listen, I'm doing great, and the weekend was fantastic because I got to watch a ton of football, college and pro. But in terms of this team and what we saw on Thursday night, I'm not feeling so good. Um, I had some good things to come out of it, but the overall effort, the overall performance, not good. So not feeling good on that front.
Certainly not. So let's just go ahead and get into a couple of things here about this Packer game. So I'm just going to list out the things that are concerning the most. One, injuries. It was bad enough we got
Yes.
pretty much embarrassed on national television. Um, it's the fact that Austin Eckler is out for the season. Dietrich Wise is out for the season. Jaden Daniels is dealing with a knee injury. John Bates is going to miss time. I believe Brandon Coleman might be missing time. Um, I can't remember if he was on the injury report or not. Anyways, there was a lot of injuries. Uh, it was clear, and I didn't realize it. Maybe I missed it. I didn't hear them announce John Bates had gotten injured, and I could see that there was a clear difference. They kept lining Eckler or McNichols kind of offset from the tackle. I'm like, why isn't Bates there? And I didn't realize that he had gotten injured. I was like, what? This is really weird play calling. So, um, but yeah, he's clearly offense and the way that they called Kingsbury had to call the rest of that game just really bad because John Bates was out, not helping to chip on Parsons and Gary and the rest of the Packers front. And then we just got outclassed, man. It was very clear from the get-go, really, that we were just no match for a team like the Green Bay Packers. And it's disappointing. Just flat out, it was incredibly disappointing. And because I said in last week's episode that we should be the ones that are feared coming into your house. It shouldn't be like, oh crap, we gotta go to Green Bay. Like if we want to act like contenders, and we need to start thinking like contenders, and you know being like them, like being feared, being the ones that other people are nervous about, and backing that up. And we just didn't do that. We didn't do it at all. It wasn't even close.
I'm going to go on a little mini rant here in a second on behalf of all Commanders fans about what I saw during that game, especially the first half. But I do want to address the injury situation real quick. Um, you always hope you're not the team that's got the injury bug. And again, maybe this was just a bad week, and things settle back down on the injury front. But all teams know the injuries are coming, and they're going to test your depth, and you get to see how deep of a team you've got. And for the Commanders, you're deeper in some areas than others. I feel like you're deep on the defensive line in terms of talent coming in and coming out. So, that's an area that could probably handle it. The running back room was pretty deep. That's going to start to get tested a little bit now. The offensive line has some depth. We knew that. We kind of thought we were six deep with just guys who could potentially start. Not to mention other guys that might can start to fill in a little bit. So you know we have depth in areas, and in other areas we don't. So this is going to start to test it. You start to test that rotation a little bit. Guys maybe not quite as fresh. Maybe a guy that did one certain thing, like Eckler with his catching ability out of the backfield, you start to lose some of those specific tools. Daniels, though, being healthy, as long as he's healthy, we got a chance. So, he's day to day. I really do feel like from an injury standpoint, I'll talk about the game here in a second, but from an injury standpoint, it was a bad night, and we lost two guys for the season, and it's going to hurt the depth. But still feel like we have a pretty good roster based on what we thought heading into the season from an injury standpoint.
Yeah, the injury, that's a good point. I mean, we do have more depth certainly than we did last year. We have more than we did then. I'm curious about hear about this rant here that you're about to go on. Hit me with it.
All right, here it goes. So I listen, Bill Belichick. This is something that he talks about all the time, and he's won a lot of Super Bowls, and yes, he had Tom Brady, but he talks about not beating yourselves. And when I watched that game on Thursday night, I really, honest and truly thought that we beat ourselves. I mean, all the way across the board, especially in the first half. I thought we absolutely killed ourselves, did not give ourselves a chance in this game. I did not think that we lost to Packers' excellence. And I respect the Green Bay Packers. I think they have a real chance to make a run all the way through the NFC and get to the Super Bowl. But I thought that before the game. I didn't see anything on Thursday night that changed my mind about that, but I didn't think the Packers played a particularly crisp game either. I thought they made plenty of mistakes and had plenty of sloppiness. But I really thought the Commanders beat themselves Thursday night, and I think all that's got to get cleared up. So here it comes. Here's what they did to beat themselves. Just some of the stuff. Kraft being left open for that huge gain. For him to lumber through the secondary and for the linebacker to be pointing at the defensive back, and nobody's got him. And that turned into what, 40, 50-yard gain? It was a
Yeah.
huge one. That was a huge momentum breaker, everything going for the Packers there. They had the Packers backed up on the 2-yard line, right? And they decided to put pressure on Love, which is fine, but then you have the tight end open underneath for an easy first down. I mean, you just let him off the hook just right off the bat. That guy should not be that open underneath for an easy 12-yard gain right there. They tried to set up a wide receiver screen, which is great. I love it. But both Zach Ertz and the wide receiver, who I don't remember who that was, they did a pitiful job of blocking. The Packers made an easy tackle there. It turns into a 2-yard loss. That should be an easy 5-yard gain right there. If it's blocked properly, it wasn't. What made it even worse was about 5 minutes of game time later, the Packers had a similar play in which both of their wide receivers did a beautiful job blocking like they're supposed to, like it's drawn up. And you had Dietrich Wise trying to get all the way out there to the edge, and he couldn't get there, and it's a 12-yard gain for the Packers. And you just see the difference there. One drive stops, the other continues simply because of one team's wide receivers blocked, the other one didn't. There was consistently bad communication by the secondary. All
Oh
right,
my God, it
there's
was
not
so
supposed to be
bad.
that many wide receivers open for easy throws all through the first half. That's just bad communication. That's guys not being where they're supposed to be. The, the defensive coordinator didn't draw it up that way, right? That's just bad communication. I don't remember who the guy was. It was a drop pass on 3rd and 9 in the first half. 3rd and 9, drop pass. It would have been an easy first down. It was a very simple pass to catch, and I don't remember who it was. But again, that's
I think it
something
was
that
Ertz.
continues a drive. Okay, yeah, it continues a drive. It builds confidence. It gives you a chance to compete, and now it's just ripped away. Tunsil catches a false start, with Micah Parsons lined up over on top of him. Listen, I get it. Micah Parsons inspires false starts, but Tunsil's been a veteran in this league for a long time. I think he's gone up against Parsons before, and he did a pretty good job handling Parsons one-on-one on the occasions where it was him versus Parsons. So for him to catch a false start there, put you back 5 yards, man, dang it, you need a guy like Tunsil to step up, not step down. So that hurts. There were multiple holding penalties on the night, at different times by different parts of the team. That hurt. Letting Matthew Golden get open behind the entire defense. Jordan Love missed it completely, but getting him, letting him just be behind the entire defense, the guy's fast. Again, so these are the things here. And there's a couple of things they did good I'll get to before we get off this Packers game. Those are the things right there. Those are the things you can fix. All of that, none of that was created by the Packers. That's just the Commanders being very sloppy and hurting themselves constantly. You're always going to have a little bit of mistakes in a game. But right there in the first half, what's that? A dozen? Those are drive killers. For the Packers, they're drive extenders. For Daniels, it's taking down his confidence. For Jordan Love, it's building up his confidence. So, that's my rant right there. They really beat themselves on Thursday night, especially in that first half.
That, I mean, so many other things too. I mean, just on the communication piece of it, it wasn't
Yeah.
even that at times the communication did seem really bad, but even outside of that, there were plays where, I mean, that was the worst game I think Mike Samerstill had played in his, young career. Um, Quan Martin looked completely out of place, like at all times. Will Harris looked awful. Like he was getting exposed in coverage. Marshawn Lattimore, we're going to talk at length about that
Mm,
individual this evening. Um,
yep.
Not great. I mean, just not looked like he did last year as opposed to 2 years ago or even 3 years ago, like
Yeah.
not good at all. I mean, making really just not even just making bad decisions. Like it wasn't even like okay, he was out of, position here. It's like some of the routes that he was taking to get to guys, it was like, why are you doing like he
Yeah.
I think it was who was or I guess it was Herbstreit. He's like he should go under there. He went way over and around everybody. It's like what? That's like a rookie mistake. Why are you even like why would you go around everybody? Of course he's going to be open by 5, 6 yards if you do that. Um I don't know if he was taught it that way or if that was just a decision he made. Um just other small stuff. It's like, dude, you know better than that. Like, why are you doing this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And clearly, I don't know if he's just getting beat. I mean, he's just flat out getting beat. He's getting run by. Um, I don't know if just all these injuries have taken a toll. He wasn't a slow corner by any means. I mean, but guys are just running right by him.
Yeah.
They're getting clear separation on him. He's getting frustrated. That's evident. He's getting frustrated. Another thing that really kind of really ticked me off is Bill was this hyped running back. Okay, Bill
Yeah.
Krause Merritt. He had 4 carries for 16 yards. Now, okay, that's 4 yards a pop. Why am I upset about that? Because Austin Eckler got 7 rushes for 12 yards. Okay, you have this mini like bowling ball of Austin Eckler that just kept throwing him at a brick wall. And Bill, the few limited carries he did get, was actually making progress. But let's not give it to him. Let's give it to Eckler. Why? I don't know. That was just, and they got away from the run game completely, which caused Daniels to be out of sync. He, excuse me, he was even trying to rush and scramble out and all this, and he couldn't get anywhere. I mean, he was getting stopped a yard, 2 yards after he crossed the line of scrimmage. I mean, whatever game plan that they used, every team in the NFL should use, which I know the Packers are very talented defense and it's easier said than done, but whatever blueprint they just created, I mean, it worked because they shut Daniels down almost completely. Now, I will say it wasn't a complete loss because he did have some moments at the end of the game, towards the end of the game, which I don't know if they were playing soft or what, where he like just toughed it out and was like, "Wow, we actually scored a couple of times." Um, but the score, the final score is not indicative of how that game really went. It feels like we should have lost by 40 some points, honestly, instead of 9. It was just that it felt like that bad of a beatdown. But Daniels pulled some you know what's out of his you know what. So, at the end of the game to even get on the board and score and find the end zone a couple of times. So, um, I have a lot more thoughts on this, but I know we can't take all night talking about it. So,
Yeah, my final couple thoughts, and again, there's three things that I thought they did okay on. I'll mention that really quick. But the whole team looked disoriented. I don't question the effort. I just question the execution. I didn't really like the offensive game plan they came out with. I didn't think they did a good job getting Jaden Daniels in a rhythm or in sync or anything. I thought that was bad. It's a good Packers defense, but again, once you start making a couple of plays, you shake up that defense and you force them to do things they don't want to do. Commanders never did that at really any point in the game, hardly. But here's what I did like about the game. They hindered the run game. We talked about that. So Josh Jacobs never went off. I think he had a long of 10 yards. I think he had like 22 carries for like 84 yards. So that was I think under 4.0 yards a carry, which is good. I like that. So they did a good job never letting him tee off, right? They kept the game close. You mentioned it. It kind of sort of felt like by late in the first half, this game was going to be a blowout, and it wasn't. They kept the game within striking distance. So I do think there's a certain amount of maturity and toughness being shown there that this team could be on the road playing this awful. I don't think they could play any worse than this, really. I this is about as bad as I could see this roster playing. And yet, still, they found a way to keep this game close, keep this game somewhere within striking distance. So I was impressed by that. And then early on in the game, in the first half, they never did let Micah Parsons and company totally tee off on Daniels. They did kind of keep that from being the waterfall effect that we saw back with the Dallas Cowboys a lot of times. A lot of times, Cowboys would get up by a touchdown or 10 points, and it was just boom, tee off of that defense. We did not see the Packers get to do that. So it wasn't, a 42-13 score. You see the final there, it's 27-18. So I like the way they did those things. That showed some good stuff, but man, you got to quit beating yourself.
Yeah, and so I just another couple of small things. No turnovers, which I thought was important.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then, for what it's worth, we called Trey Amos's name one time, and it was because of a game
Right.
at the time, like a game-changing play where he, got a pass breakup that saved a touchdown, early on in the
Right.
game. Um, we called his name one time. That was it. No penalties, no big blown coverages. He, through 2 weeks, seems as advertised. Now, again, I'm not going to put too much stock into that, of course, but for what it's worth, he had another stellar. I didn't look up any grades or anything. I meant to, but I didn't look up any grades or anything like that. But hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully that's a good sign. In a night where the secondary was in disarray, he seemed to have everything together.
Yeah, that's a great point because the Packers have a number of guys they can, we'll say, beat you with, but compete with you on. And Jordan Love wasn't going after Amos. He was going after some other people. He wasn't going after Amos.
All right. Anything else on the Packers game to wrap it up?
I listen. I could go on all night. Harris had a tackle where he would have stopped the first down easy. He gets run over by. He tries to arm tackle the tight end at
Yeah.
shoulder level. That turns into an easy 12-yard first down. I mean, all this stuff. It's just ridiculous. But no, that's enough. It was one game. We said before the game, win or lose, it's one game. You move on. So
All right. So let's get into the Raiders scouting report that you have. And if you want to break this down for us, since it
all right.
is your scouting reports, love to hear what you got.
Here it goes. All right. So I mentioned a week or so ago that there were teams that had a lot of red blotches when it came to the 2024 rankings, and this is one of them. Okay.
All right.
You look at the Raiders' offense. 29th in points per game, 27th in yards per game. This is in 24. 32nd, 31st in rushing yards per game scored. Offensive EPA, I mean, you look at it, this was a bad offense last year. Pretty much everything except for passing yards, which a lot of that is playing catch up, right? So they were able to throw the
Right.
football some, but that's playing catch up. So they should be better on offense this year. We'll get to that in just a second. The defense was a lot better than the talent it had. I mean, they're not good at sacks and turnovers last year, and they gave up a lot of points. But you look at almost everything else in terms of EPA, red zone, third down. I really give Patrick Graham a lot of credit for last year getting this defense to be that competitive. You see the middle of the pack in a lot of categories there, and I thought he just did a heck of a job. Max Crosby too is a huge part of that, but the talent on that defense last year just was not that good, and they turned it into something. So hats off to them for that. So now that's last year's stats. What's the roster like this year? What are the position groups like? Well, those are my grades on them. They got Geno Smith at quarterback. You got the running back room coming in at C plus. Wide receivers, the wide receivers got a C, but I'm not even sure they're that good. That they can compete. That's about it. It's not a great receiver room. Brock Bowers is the bright spot on the offense at an A minus. The defense gets an A minus on the edgers because of Max Crosby. It's not a good secondary. I think it's a rough secondary. They play hard, but it's a rough secondary. And the offensive line is on paper, it's a solid offensive line, but to start off this year, it has not been good. The right side, especially, has struggled. The left side of that offensive line is fine, but the right side has got to pick it up. So that's that's the Raiders' offensive and defensive rosters right there. Just to kind of a quick give you a feel for. I think they're better this year than they were last year, though.
Yeah, so I definitely think that they have, at least roster-wise, a higher floor than they did last year, and if we're comparing the two. Also the
Right.
addition, the big addition here to the team is Pete Carroll. Um, and Geno Smith and guys like that, Ashton Genty and so forth. Um, those are the big additions to the team. So obviously the floor's been raised. I also think the ceiling's been raised for this team. Now with Kansas City looking the way they do, with the Bengals out of the picture, is it possible that maybe the Raiders can get into at least the conversation, or at least the running for a wild card spot? I still think personally there's too many teams in the AFC uh, that they can squeeze their way in there. But again, stranger things have certainly happened in the NFL. Now, normally, and when I say normally, I mean based on 2 weeks of episodes here, I would have a list of three players from each team that I th like that we need to watch out for. Like, wow, like these guys, they're on fire. It's Byers on fire list. I scrapped that for this week because I'm so fed up with that performance of last week that these three guys that I'm listing here, they're on the hot seat of potentially losing either their starting job or their job, period. Okay. So I just have, the hot seat list here. Um, First and foremost is Marshawn Lattimore. We're gonna get into him again. Like I said, we're gonna talk about this guy a lot tonight. Um, he's got to play better, flat out. Um, I don't know what he needs to do in order to make that a reality. I'm not going to pretend to know, but he needs to get it figured out. And if he can't get it figured out, if Witt and Quinn can't get it figured out, then they just need to cut ties. Okay. I also did want to mention this. So Mikey Sainristil, he didn't come on really until later last season, second half of the season. And that was
Yeah.
about the time that he started playing outside a lot more. Now, I don't have numbers to back this up. I'm just going based off memory and eye test. Um, if Marshawn Lattimore can't get it together, I am all in favor. And I think I told you this in the offseason. I am all in favor of putting Mikey Sanders still back on the outside and having either a Jonathan Jones or Noah I playing slot. Because if this continues, what happened on Thursday night and what happened last year during the wild card game, during the championship game, where he just can't keep his cool and he's a liability on the outside, um, then I'll take a slightly, a lot something I know is a liability like Noah I on in the slot, who's decent. I mean, he's not bad, but he's not good either. He's going to get exposed every now and then. I'll take that in the slot versus Marshawn Lattimore on the outside, constantly being attacked, constantly being berated and just targeted because he can't get it done. I would take Mikey Sainristil on the outside and Noah I in the slot over Marshawn, this version of Marshawn Lattimore, um, as it currently stands. So he needs to get
Yeah.
together. If he doesn't, I want this dude benched. I'm being full on serious. I don't care what you gave up to get him. You need to bench this guy and get Mikey back on the outside. Because honestly, I haven't been quiet about this. I think Sanders still get, even though his size is a concern, I still think he's better out as an outside corner. So I would be more than in favor of that. Um, Ideally, the ideal scenario is that Lattimore gets it turned around, Mikey continues to develop in the slot, and everything's fine and dandy. But as it currently stands, that's not a reality. Do you want to move on to the next one, or do you want to react to any of that?
Now let's move on to the next one. Then I'll pick one of those three to talk about because we're definitely going to talk about Lattimore later.
Right. Josh Connolly Jr. Look, I'm not going to pick on him too much, right? But when I said lose his starting job, this is what I mean here. because obviously you're not going to give up on a first round rookie. I certainly have not given up on him. I think that he's even in a rough couple of games, he's shown enough to be like, okay, that this is why we drafted this guy. But at the same time, you know, first week you have to face a combination of Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, and Brian Burns. He got exposed a little bit. This past week was Micah Parsons. I mean, there's just no answer for. I mean, he got exposed. It was a bad day for Josh Connerly Jr. And he might lose his starting job momentarily. Like Andrew Wiley might get inserted to lineup here. Um, he's got another tough test against Max Crosby. Uh, we'll see what happens, but he's kind of on the hot seat, not in terms of losing his job, and Quinn and company, they have to be careful here because if they bench him and don't give him any opportunities for, a hot minute, that could absolutely destroy his confidence, and you might not be able to get that back, you know. So my thought is leave him out there, let him take his lumps, let him continue to show you that you drafted him for a reason and that this is just a rookie thing. He's learning the game. Yeah, and we covered it when he was coming out. That draft pundit said, "Oh, he'd be a top five pick if he came out next year." Right. So let's get through this season. Granted, we need to win and we need to keep Jaden upright, but he needs to get it together sooner rather than later, or else he could get benched just for the betterment of the team, if not for anything else, for Jaden's health. So he's in danger there. And then finally, we have another kicking problem. Um, I'm so talking tired of talking about kickers. Just make the kicks. Okay, you literally have one job. Put the ball through the upright. That's it. If I was getting paid, Ben, millions of dollars. This guy has, I think, the largest guaranteed contract for kicker in the NFL. Matt Gay does. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Make the freaking kick. Okay, if I was getting paid millions of dollars to do that, I would be up day and night. As much as my body and leg could take, I would be kicking balls through the upright on a constant basis, not a couple times during practice. This guy needs to make the kicks. If he doesn't, cut him next week. Like just I mean, 1 for 3 isn't good enough. Not saying it would have been a massive difference in this past game, but still, like you gotta make your kicks. I got nothing else for you. Like that's not much analysis there. Just make the damn kicks.
Yeah, you don't need much analysis when it comes to kickers. They either make it or they don't. It's like an electric socket. It either works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no beauty contest here. It either happened or it didn't. I real hit the Connorly thing real quick. I don't want to take him out. I haven't made a decision to start him at the start of the season. This is one reason a lot of coaches are hesitant to start rookies at the start of the season because it's always kind of easier to plug them in later if you feel like they deserve it than it is to start them right off the bat and then pull them out because you start to have a confidence thing, right? But having made the decision to start him for the start of the season like they did, I think I just want to be more committed to making sure that he has a tight end right there beside him on every play. If we are dropping back to pass, I want to make sure he's got a tight end right there beside him to shove that defensive end over right in front of him and secure that and give him a much better chance at blocking these guys until he shows that he's improved. Having said that, if I've committed a tight end to his side consistently and it's still really bad, and I'm not going to endanger Jaden Daniels. So at the end of the day, if I've got to make a choice between endangering Jaden Daniels or maybe hurting Connerly's confidence, that's not a hard choice. Okay. So come by, week 4, week 5, if it's still a major problem, then Connerly's going to sit and Wiley's going to start. And that's just the way it's going to be. And that's not great either. But yeah, that's what's going to happen right there. I would give it another week or two, but I cannot let Jaden Daniels. I mean, listen, you see what happened in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow going down. Their season's shot, right? There's not much going to come out of that. Even if it did, I'm not sure anybody cares, right? If they pull a wild card victory out of that or wild card appearance, it's exciting, but there's no Super Bowl hope there, right? So
Yeah,
you want to keep your franchise guys safe. That's why you drafted Connerly, but I'm not risking JD5 just to not hurt Connerly's feelings. So
fair enough. Absolutely. These guys just gotta play better, flat out. You know, no, not much of a conversation. They just gotta play better, or else they're, like I said, either they're gonna get cut, or they're gonna get benched. So, all right, real quick before we get into this, Ben, why don't you go ahead and shout out everything that else has been you've been uploading on the channel recently?
Oh yeah, yeah, right. Literally dumped in 4 videos tonight. 3 tight end prospects. They're individual, self-contained now, so you can watch one guy for 8 minutes, 12 minutes if you want. You hear our opinions on that, and then we did. Ironically enough, we had this planned ahead of time. We did a video on the Packers offense, about 15 minutes about how to hinder, slow down, stop the Packers offense. So that's up there on this same channel as well.
Absolutely. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on this video and subscribe to the channel. Um, and that way you get updates on all of the videos. So, anyways, this GM corner. Tell me about what you got going on with this GM corner segment.
Brand new segment. We'll drop it in during the regular season from time to time whenever we feel the need to. I know a lot of people, especially in the content business, who are like, "Oh, that's an off-season thing." Totally disagree. 100% disagree. You don't wake up the day after the season ends and think, "Well, what are we going to do next year?" These decisions are being made, thought about, planned on, strategized about, hashed over endlessly every day of every week. All right. And so as these things come up, you see it in a game or you see it consistently over several weeks, you see something that as a GM, you need to plan to adjust, replace, build better, right? You make these notes, that starts to get your off-season plan put together. This is the first one. I was already leaning against the Lattimore extension next off-season. That was already in my head because of the age and the years played. He's been around a long time. I was already leaning against that. Then you start to combine the fact that, hey, he's not the only guy who's going to want some money next off-season. And even though right now we have the salary cap space, you can't re-sign everybody comfortably, right? So, with that in mind, there are other contracts I'd rather devote the money to, quite possibly. And then the performance this year, it hasn't been good. It was clear on Thursday night that they were going right at Lattimore on purpose. And he was guarding Dontavian Wicks, of all people. This
Oh,
wasn't like the 2 guys last year, the big the Tampa Bay wide receiver that gave him so much difficulty twice.
Mike Evans,
Um,
yeah.
and yes, it's not like Mike Evans. And it's not the speedster Matthew Golden. It's Dontavian Wicks, who's a solid receiver. I have respect for him, but he's just that. He's a solid production level receiver, and they were going right at him, especially in the first half. But they were not hesitating to go right after him. And it's not the first time this year, right? I mean, we've already started to see, they don't mind going after Lattimore at all. So all things considered, I'm not yet at the point where I don't want him on the team next year because he is under contract for next year. That's still up in the air, but I'm leaning pretty hard, probably 70, 80% against any kind of Lattimore extension. And if he insists on one, then I really have no problem trading him to another team for whatever I can get.
Yeah, honestly, I don't disagree with you in the least there. I mean, you have no guaranteed dollars to this guy, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing there's nothing stopping you from cutting him at any point. Not saying do it during the season. I wouldn't do that. Um,
Right.
but if after the season you're like, man, you're not in the cards, we can use this 18, $20 million, whatever it is the last number is on,
Mm-hmm.
or last year of his deal is. Um,
Yep.
I can certainly use that for other places. So,
Yes.
I wouldn't hesitate doing that.
Yeah, agreed. And early on, we've at least shown the idea that maybe we can draft and develop defensive backs to some degree. I know it's still very early to say that, but you've got Sanders Steele and Amos both showing signs of progress, right? So,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't hate the idea that as they get older, we add another young guy through the draft. So,
All right. Your keys to hail victory.
oh yeah, here it goes. I think two of them are almost identical to last week. The yeah, really three of them. But anyway, let's hit the first one. Stone Cold Crosby. Everybody's heard of Max Crosby. If he's not as good as Micah Parsons, and I don't think he is, he's real close. Oh my gosh, you talk about a guy that can rip apart double teams and get pressure on the quarterback nonstop, and he's got the strength that Parsons does not have, right? And you talk about a guy that never stops coming. I mean, never. That is Max Crosby. So we don't need to let him get off early in this game. That's gonna be a lot harder to do because he's got the strength aspect, right? It's not like Parsons where you just kick him off to the tackle and you're done. If you kick Crosby off to the tackle, he may just run over the tackle. I don't. He's not going to run over Tunsil, but Connerly, he may run over Connerly. So I guarantee Crosby's going to be lined up on Connerly, and you're going to have to tight end and tackle double team him, and that still might not be enough, right? So, but
Mm-hmm.
let's do what we can. If we need to just run the offense away from Crosby on some of the passing downs, let's half the field, right? Because the Raiders don't have a great secondary. We can operate on that side a little bit. Let's just run away from Crosby a little bit, right? That's okay too, to mix some of that in, right? Let's get the ball out quick, whatever. Let's do everything we can to make sure Crosby doesn't get off to a hot start.
Okay. I believe you touched on this one a bit earlier, kind of in your mini rant earlier, but
Yes.
would you like to dive further into this one?
Yeah, listen, this is not hard. I realize that it's not as easy as just me sitting here saying it. But this is one reason the Patriots were so consistently good all those years. Brady was amazing, but he could only do so much. They were just an efficient team week in and week out. They didn't commit a lot of stupid penalties. They didn't have many missed tackles. They weren't out of position a lot, in the secondary. They didn't have miscommunication. They cleaned up all that, and the good teams generally do, but the Patriots are exhibit A of that, right? And so, listen, if the Commanders are going to keep growing up as a franchise, just don't beat yourselves. Let's cut out all of that nonsense. Let's make the other team beat us. And let's let the Raiders beat themselves, but let's not beat ourselves. It's so easy to say, and it's not that hard to do. It's not as easy as just saying it. But let's just quit all that nonsense. Let's don't beat ourselves.
And then finally, so I put in parentheses here or Mariota
Yeah.
because we
Yes.
still don't know if Jaden's going to be playing this week due to that knee injury that's been reported on. Full disclosure, we record on Tuesdays, so we don't have the injury report. Wednesday practice hasn't happened yet. By the time you've listened to this, Wednesday practice might have already happened, but um, we don't know who's playing. Either way, I still feel like this applies.
Totally agree. I didn't think they did this last week to the Packers. I thought they kind of let JD sit back there. You know, I just didn't see any creativity in that offensive game plan at all. I just didn't see it. So I think the OC needs to do a little bit better job of that. Quick passes out early. Let's screen the crap out of the Raiders. Okay, let's just screen the crap out of it. If you're not going to run, excuse me, throat's drawn up. If you're not going to run Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, I would really rather see him get the ball up the middle some and then screen the crap out of him. And then once you've gotten that, I was going to run JD5 some too, but if he's banged up a little bit, I don't know that I want him running outside the pocket too much. But you need to do something to just get him moving the chains a little bit, get that confidence going early. It tipped me off so much last week. I think JD5 is at least as good a quarterback as Jordan Love. But Jordan Love's out here celebrating. He's got easy receivers all over the field. He's got, he's comfortable back there. and he's all confident, and JD5 sitting over here on the sideline looking kind of glum, and I'm like, dang it, that just really ticks me off. We did not do a good job getting Daniels going. And some of these guys, you need to kind of do the little things it takes to get them going early. So let's get the passes out quick. Let's run a bunch of screens. Let's hand the ball off up the middle. Let's challenge the Raiders defense deep with a couple of big strikes to McLaurin or Jaden, Lane, the rookie. Let's mix it up. I don't want Daniels just sitting here surveying the field early in the game. Don't give me that. I don't want that. That's do not do that. I don't like that.
I couldn't agree more with that. Again, regardless of who it is, whether it's Jaden, whether it's Mariota,
Yes.
you need to get the offense in a rhythm. And I would say that the good part about this is that whether Jaden plays or not, you don't really have to change the offense too much. Now, obviously, you're not going to be running a bunch of quarterback draws, a bunch of quarterback powers, but Mariota still has the mobility to do probably about 90% of the play calls that you would normally call for Jaden. Again, you're probably not going to want to get him out on the run too much, but still, it shouldn't hinder the offensive play calling much at all. I wouldn't think at least. Um, so that's why I still think this applies, whether because I don't know how much the game plan changes with or without Jaden. I can't imagine too much, but you need to get the offense in a rhythm here.
Yeah, a couple other things I'll just add in as game notes. Monday night, you started to see Ashton Jaunty. There was some sloppiness there, but you saw him catch off a few runs, nice,
Yeah.
consistent runs against the Chargers. You even saw him do a 360, you know, PlayStation type spin against Derwin James. I mean, it was a beautiful little play there.
Yep.
So, you might want to contain him a little bit. Don't let him get off. And then this Raiders secondary is not a good secondary, but it plays very hard. So I think there are matchups to be won all over the field here for the Commanders when it comes to the Commanders wide receivers going up against the Raiders secondary. But you might have to be a little patient to get it. It might not happen the first quarter. It might be second and third quarter before you get those matchup hits. You want to get nice rhythm early. Let's get some first downs, then start to take advantage of these matchups later in the game.
Also, I just realized that I've had that we're 2-0 on all of these. But so we're not 2-0. So that was my
We're
mistake.
not.
Um
It's all right. We wanted to
final
be 2-0. We planned on being 2-0.
yeah, exactly. Final predictions.
All right. Listen, the Commanders are the better team here. It's not particularly close. In fact, it reminds me a lot of the Giants game. But the Raiders have a lot of energy. Patrick Graham does a great job with that defense. Pete Carroll has a ton of energy. Between Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, and Ashton Jaunty, the Raiders have enough to beat you with. And they like running two tight end sets with Michael Myers and Brock Bowers in there. And Jacoby Myers is halfway decent receiver, right? So I think this is a fairly close game, but I do expect the Commanders to win. So give me the Commanders 24 and the Raiders 20.
Maybe I'm thinking wrong about this game, but I see blowout written on this.
I would love it.
I see that, it's somewhat close, for most of the game. Then once you get in the fourth quarter, it just kind of starts pouring on, and kind of like how we saw last night, where Gino, like, he just doesn't really have much help, and then receivers make mistakes. There's interceptions. Again, maybe not all his fault, but still, all the mistakes start happening. I'm rather optimistic here. I think this team's pissed off, and they've had a long time to stew over this. Granted, there are injuries, but I don't think they care. So I'm going,
Right.
again, maybe I'm way too optimistic. I'm going 38-21. I think
Wow. I
I
would
think
love to see that.
it's I think it's a beat down late. Like that we just kind of lean on them a bit, and this run game hopefully it gets going. I think Mariota, like when he was in last year, I mean he was letting it fly. So I can't see again against this Raiders secondary why he couldn't do that again, or why he wouldn't be doing that again. So I'm seeing blowout on this one. I hope I'm right. Um, but I think this team's pissed off. I think they knew that they could have played better on Thursday, and with a team like the Raiders who struggled on Monday night. So that's another thing too. The Raiders are coming off a short week. We're coming off kind of like one of those quote unquote mini buys. So we have a rather
Right.
large rest advantage. So I think there's a lot of factors that play into this that just I think it's shaping up for a blowout.
It's a great point. That is certainly on the table as a possibility. I obviously did not predict that, and I'm not expecting that. But the Commanders have that ability, and I don't know that the Raiders do. So the Commanders have that within them for sure. I would love to see that come out, take off, and just blow them out late, man.
I'd love to. I'd love to. But um anything else on any of the games or any of the games, goodness. Uh anything else on the Raiders game before we sign off?
I could go all night, but it should be a fun game. I think for the Commanders fans, I really do expect a victory here. They are the better team. If they lose this game, then I'm going to have concerns, but I do not expect them to lose this game.
I certainly don't. I as well would have concerns now. Again, it might not be easy. Like 'cause I think what you're saying too also has some merit, about it being close, but um you shouldn't lose this game. If you lose this game,
Hmm.
like you said, we got problems and we need to address them ASAP or else this season's going to be lost before you know it. Um anything about Box Score, any particular show you want to shout out this week?
I definitely want you to tell us what you do with Simon here in just a minute, but I
Oh,
have to
right,
shout
duh.
out
Goodness.
because CONCACAF they've put out a bunch of soccer content. They're a fun listen to. It's a little bit different. A lot of the guys on our network are straight laced and all business, which is fine. That's how I am, right? But because CONCACAF guys, they like to mix it up a little bit. So, if you like to hear the pot stirred just a little bit, that's definitely a show to listen to. So, Andy Lohman and company, they will do a great job over there with because CONCACAF.
I want to shout out first. I'll get to Simon and Friends podcast here in a second. I want to shout out Tricky Takes. They just launched their own YouTube channel. Tricky Takes.
Yes.
That's with two eyes. For those on the audio side that can't see the ad right here, launched their YouTube channel. I think they're posting a lot of their Tricky 50. That's one of their more popular segments. Um, that's also a lot of fun. I think I was involved in I think one or two of them in the past. And it's a fun segment. Make sure you go check out that YouTube channel. Tricky with two eyes, Tricky Takes. Um, Make sure you check that out. And also all the stuff that Two Peas in a Pod does, the stuff that you do with Austin on the Box Score Network YouTube channel as far as fantasy goes. If you're a big fantasy nerd, um, you know, Tricky and Two Peas on a Pod and Ben, they seem to have really kind of developed a more or less a system. If I don't know if that's the right terminology there, but on how
Yep.
Box Score is handling their fantasy football and so forth. So it's really great content that we're outputting here. And just make sure you check all this out. And Ben, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the recent fantasy video you did with Austin this past weekend or not. Just wanted to shout that out. Um, but yeah,
Late Saturday night, we get together, me, Austin, sometimes a couple other guys from the Box Score Network. I actually won't be on it this Saturday night, but Austin will with somebody else. But yeah, we're doing the fantasy thing, and it's usually going to show up late Saturday night or early Sunday morning in time for your NFL games and your last minute, switcheroos and stuff like that. And then Two Peas in a Pod does some of the fantasy stuff as well, kind of comboed together there, right? So
hmm
yeah, that's if you're into fantasy. By the way, my fantasy football team is bad this year. I have been blown out twice now by like
Jeez.
40%. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of like my team, but I just don't have enough power hitters, to keep me up there on scores. So I'm hoping to get out of the cellar at some point this year. I'm going to keep managing it. I'm going to manage this thing all the way to the bitter end.
It's a long season. You got a long way left. So um thank you all for listening. Again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, please. And If you're on the YouTube side of things, we are on Apple and Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcast from. If you're listening to us to audio form, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Pro Football Enterprises.
Tell them what you and Simon did too.
Oh, right. I'm so sorry. Goodness, Simon and Friends. Yes. So sorry. So that's where I was prior to recording this episode. Week two, after week two, the past 3 years now, me and Simon Short, host Simon and Friends podcast and Box Score Network, we do overreactions after 2 weeks of football. Understanding that that's absolutely ridiculous, so that's exactly why we do it, because it is absolutely ridiculous. Usually we're wrong, of course, but it's a lot of fun. We actually got into it this year a little bit. Normally, the past couple years, we've been disappointed. Like we don't really disagree with each other much on these things. Um, if you had seen some of our text threads, either whether it's in the Slack group chat or whether it's just us DMing back and forth, it can get rather heated and rather spirited, uh, pretty quickly depending on what the subject's about. So I always look forward to these, and I thought it was a good one this year. And I had to eat a lot of humble pie because I went back on a lot of my takes that I've had in previous years. Ben, if you know certainly worth a listen for you because some of the stuff we've talked about over the years. Definitely worth a listen. So make sure you check that out. Simon and Friends podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else you get your podcasts. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Hope you all have a happy week three, hopefully with a blowout victory of the Las Vegas Raiders. And we will see you all next week.